On this video, I will show you how to do load separation for inverter if the distribution board is a single phase distribution board, just like you can see on here. But before that, if the distribution board is three phase, I've already explained how to do the separation here, and the method we used on those videos were onboard separation. And if you are doing the onboard load separation and you are having issue with the common neutral, or your inverter is having issue with the common neutral, that is the neutral from your inverter combined with the neutral from NEPA and generator, you can as well introduce another bar inside the box within the board where you connect the neutrals for the inverter separately. You can do that in here. You don't necessarily need to start installing an external board outside this board. You can still utilize this, put your separate neutral bar, and everything will still look neat. So let's get back to the single phase board. Now, if you notice on this single phase DB, the main breaker here has two poles, unlike the three phase DB that the main breaker has three poles. So on the three phase distribution board, the three sources of power enters, that's their life, and their neutral goes straight to the neutral bar. It doesn't go through the breaker. But on the single phase DB, it is different. You notice that the breaker has life terminal and neutral terminal. So it is two. It is not just for two sources of power. One is for the life and one is for the neutral. So you notice that the neutral here is on this end, and the output goes on this black cable to the neutral bar, just like you have on the three phase as well. Then the life, if you look closely, you will see a copper bar that came out from the output of the breaker, and this copper bar connects to all these breakers over here. So the output of these breakers will be from the bottom, and as usual, you have the earthing bar by the bottom where you connect the earthings and all of that. If this is the type of distribution board you have where you are doing your inverter installation, for this you will now need to do an off-board load separation. As usual, your NEPA and generator life will go here. This NEPA and generator, their life will go here, and their neutral would as well go to this terminal. Then for the inverter, you will need an external breaker box, like you can see over here. This is the most common one. It has the breaker ready. There's no breaker on this one. When you open the cover, you put the breakers based on the loads they are powering, because you also need to size the breakers. I have already shown you how to size breakers, so you size the breakers properly according to the loads they are powering inside the breaker box. So this breaker box is, I think this is 12 pole breaker box, or 12 ways. I don't know how they call it in the market. So it can take up to 12 breakers in it. There are some that are 4, there are some that are 6, and all of that, even 8 as well. It doesn't matter. It depends on the connection you are doing, so you get the one that is appropriate for your electrical wiring. Now the inverter will go to this breaker box instead of this, because this is not a single phase distribution board, so we can't do an in-board load separation because it cannot support that, unlike the three phase. Now your inverter life will now enter this particular breaker box, and the neutral as well would enter this breaker box. So this is inverter, neutral, and life. I don't have the picture where this breaker box is open, but if you open it, there's a neutral bar, just a short, small, tiny bar that is inside. You can as well get your own bar for the neutral if that will not be adequate for the neutral connection you want to link inside the breaker box. So you put your own neutral bar, connect all the neutrals that will become, that's the loads on the breakers. Now the life of your inverter will now be looped on the breakers that you will be inserting inside this breaker box. Then the output will now go to those various loads the inverter would power. Those loads initially we are inside here, since we are assuming that the apartment is already functional, which means you have to take all those loads out of these initial breakers here, run your connection through a trunking pipe or however to this other breaker box. So all those loads that inverter will power will now have to go over to this breaker box where you have the inverter power going to directly. And you also notice that the neutral is also separate from the neutral here. If you want to link them, you can still link them, but if it is not necessary, you don't need to start linking both the neutrals together. And why I'm recommending this type of breaker box, this is a surface mount breaker box. They are also the conduit type of the breaker box, the one you have to break the wall and sink it on the wall to be flat with the wall. But why I recommend this is that most places where you will install inverter are rented apartments, and in most tenancy agreements, the tenants can do any major modification on the building structure, so you can break the wall and put a breaker. And not just that, even when the tenant is moving out, it will be easy for them to just disconnect the breaker box, carry out their property to their new apartment. So that way you're not doing a huge modification. The breaker box will be mounted on the wall, either with the wood or directly on the wall, depending on the ethics and the way you do your electrical wirings. This method of separation we did here is called an off-board separation. So it is separate from the main distribution board. It has a separate board, which is now this breaker box on the left hand side. And on the next video, I'll be showing you how to do a load separation if your generator is 3-phase, or you have an appliance that is 3-phase appliance, but your inverter is a single-phase inverter. And obviously, you will be using a 3-phase distribution board for a 3-phase generator or a 3-phase appliance. So click the follow button so you'll see the next video.